She gives you just enough attention to keep you hoping, then disappears again. A text today, silence for a week. A compliment, then cold distance. If you've ever felt trapped in this cycle, you're not alone. Breadcrumbing is one of the most emotionally draining experiences in modern dating. It keeps you attached without giving you a real relationship. Stoic philosophy teaches that your peace should never depend on another person's inconsistent attention. In this video, you'll learn 6 Stoic lessons that will help you stop chasing mixed signals, protect your self-respect, and regain complete emotional control. Comment: no more games. Number 1. See the pattern. Understand what breadcrumbing really is. The hardest part is not that she disappears. It is that she always comes back just enough to keep you hoping, just enough to make you question yourself, and just enough to stop you from walking away completely, because she understands that a small message, a simple reaction to your story, a random compliment, or a short conversation is often enough to reset your hope all over again. And while you think things are finally changing, she simply returns to the same pattern, becoming distant the moment she knows your attention is secure again. And this cycle continues because you keep looking at every small sign instead of the full picture. But the truth is that a woman who genuinely values you does not constantly leave you wondering where you stand. She does not repeatedly disappear without explanation, and she does not expect you to survive on tiny pieces of attention while she gives her best energy somewhere else, because real interest is clear, consistent, and peaceful, while breadcrumbing creates confusion on purpose, leaving you trapped inside endless questions that have no satisfying answer. And every day you remain inside this cycle, your confidence slowly becomes attached to whether she chooses to acknowledge you or ignore you, until you begin measuring your own value by the sound of your phone instead of by your own character. And that is exactly where your power slips away, because the moment another person controls your emotions through inconsistency, they control your direction, your thoughts, your sleep, your focus, and even your future without ever earning that position in your life. So stop searching for hidden meanings inside mixed signals and start looking at repeated actions instead, because repeated actions never lie, even when words do. And if she repeatedly shows that you are only an option when it suits her, believe that pattern instead of believing your imagination, because hope without evidence only keeps you trapped longer. And every extra excuse you make for her behavior becomes another chain that keeps you from building the life you deserve. So stop asking yourself why she behaves this way, and begin asking yourself why you continue accepting treatment that steals your peace, because the answer to that question changes everything. And once you become honest with yourself, you stop chasing explanations and start protecting your own time, your own energy, and your own future. And from that moment, her small games lose their power because you finally judge reality instead of wishful thinking. Number 2. Stop seeking her approval. Your value is not decided by her attention. Every time you wait for her message before you can enjoy your day, every time your mood rises because she finally replies after ignoring you for days, and every time you convince yourself that one small sign means everything is getting better, you slowly hand your confidence over to someone who has not earned that responsibility, because your emotional balance becomes dependent on her choices instead of your own principles. And this is exactly why so many men remain stuck for months or even years, chasing someone who gives almost nothing in return, because they confuse attention with affection and confusion with connection. When in reality, she has simply discovered that she does not need to invest much to keep you emotionally available. And once she sees that you continue showing up no matter how little she offers, there is no reason for her to give more, because she already receives the benefit without making any real effort, while you continue carrying the emotional burden alone, hoping that patience will eventually change her heart. But your patience is not changing her. It is changing you, making you accept less than you deserve, and making unhealthy treatment appear normal, until one day you barely recognize yourself because your standards have become smaller every time you accepted another excuse, another delayed reply, another cancelled plan, another empty promise, and another week of silence followed by a casual message as though nothing happened. But your confidence returns the moment you stop asking whether she values you and begin asking whether her behavior deserves a place in your life at all, because your worth never rises when she notices you and never falls when she ignores you. Your worth comes from your discipline, your integrity, your purpose, your ability to stand firm when emotions try to pull you away from your own values. And the stronger that foundation becomes, the less attractive inconsistent attention appears, because you stop craving scraps once you understand your own value. And when your life becomes full of meaningful goals, strong friendships, physical health, financial progress, and personal growth, her inconsistent behavior no longer feels powerful, because your happiness no longer depends on whether she decides to include you in her day. And that is the moment you become truly difficult to manipulate, because your peace comes from within your own life, instead of from her unpredictable attention. Number 3. Control your emotions. You cannot control her choices. You cannot decide when she texts, who she gives attention to, how she spends her time, or whether she genuinely wants a future with you. And the longer you try to control those things, the more exhausted you become, because you are fighting a battle that can never be won. But you always control something much more valuable than her decisions. You control your response, your standards, your patience, your actions, and the direction of your own life, and this is where your real strength begins. Because emotional discipline does not mean pretending nothing hurts. It means refusing to let temporary emotions decide permanent actions. It means refusing to send another message simply because loneliness becomes loud at night. It means refusing to beg for attention simply because silence becomes uncomfortable. It means refusing to abandon your self-respect just because your heart wants immediate relief. Because temporary comfort often creates lasting regret, while self-control creates lasting confidence. And every time you choose patience over impulse, you quietly build a stronger version of yourself that no longer depends on anyone else's behavior to remain steady, and something surprising begins to happen. Your mind becomes clearer because you stop wasting hours analyzing every message, every delay, every online status, and every tiny detail that never truly changes your situation anyway. And with that clarity, you begin seeing opportunities that were hidden while your attention remained trapped by one person. Your work improves, your health improves, your conversations become stronger, your confidence becomes more natural, and your future slowly expands because your energy finally returns to the only place where it always belongs, your own life. And whether she comes back or not becomes less important every single day because your peace is no longer connected to her decisions. And if she eventually reaches out after realizing she no longer controls your attention, you no longer respond from desperation. You respond from wisdom, because you have learned that consistent respect matters far more than temporary excitement, and you understand that a peaceful life is built by protecting your standards instead of constantly lowering them for someone who repeatedly shows that your loyalty is something she enjoys receiving but never truly values. If you are ready to strengthen that mindset even further, the Stoic Relationship Blueprint ebook for men is linked in the comments, filled with timeless principles that help you break emotional dependence, build unshakable confidence, and transform your life. And it is now available as an audiobook, so you can listen while taking a walk, jogging, or training. And because it is yours forever, you will always have access to this life-changing wisdom. Also, the Stoic Relationship Blueprint course for men is launching this coming July to help you apply these lessons step by step in your everyday life. So comment Blueprint below to get early access and be among the first to experience a transformation that can stay with you for the rest of your life. Number 4. Set clear boundaries. Do not accept inconsistent effort. The moment you stop accepting less than you deserve, your entire life begins to change, because boundaries are not about controlling her behavior. They are about deciding what you will and will not allow into your life, and that decision belongs to you alone. Yet so many men struggle with this because they confuse boundaries with being harsh, selfish, or unforgiving, when the truth is completely different, because every healthy relationship is built on mutual respect, and respect cannot exist where one person keeps taking while the other keeps giving. So if she only contacts you when she is bored, lonely, disappointed by someone else, or looking for attention, while disappearing the moment you become emotionally invested again, then she is showing you exactly where you stand in her priorities, and pretending not to notice does not protect your heart. It only extends your pain, because every excuse you make for her teaches her that your standards are flexible, that your time is cheap, and that your loyalty can be collected without being appreciated. And once that becomes the pattern, she has no reason to change, because she already receives all the benefits while investing very little herself, which is why you must stop rewarding behavior that slowly destroys your self-respect. Because every delayed reply you excuse, every cancelled plan you quietly accept, every empty promise you forgive without change, and every moment where she returns expecting instant access to your attention sends the same message, that she can continue treating you however she chooses without consequences, and people rarely respect what they never have to earn. So your responsibility is not to convince her to value you. Your responsibility is to value yourself enough to step away from situations that consistently leave you anxious, uncertain, and emotionally drained, because your life is too valuable to spend waiting for someone who only remembers your existence when it benefits her. And there comes a moment where you must stop asking whether she is going to change and start asking whether you are willing to keep sacrificing your peace for someone who repeatedly shows you that your needs come second to her convenience, because that question demands honesty, and honesty often hurts before it heals. But it also opens the door to freedom, and when you begin living by clear standards, you no longer negotiate with behavior that steals your confidence. You simply recognize it and quietly remove yourself without anger, without begging, and without trying to prove your worth, because your actions speak louder than long emotional conversations ever could. And something powerful happens when you become this disciplined. You stop attracting people who only want easy access to your attention, because they quickly realize you are no longer available for emotional games. And while some women disappear the moment they realize they cannot manipulate your kindness anymore, that is not your loss. It is your protection, because someone who walks away after discovering you have standards was never planning to respect you in the first place. She was planning to benefit from your lack of boundaries. And there is a huge difference between those two things. So stop worrying about appearing too distant when you protect your peace, because the right woman never fears healthy standards. She appreciates them, while the wrong woman sees them as an obstacle because they prevent her from keeping you trapped inside endless uncertainty. And this is why your boundaries must remain firm, even when your emotions try to persuade you otherwise, because emotions change from one day to the next, but principles remain steady, and every single time you honor your own standards instead of chasing temporary comfort, you strengthen your confidence a little more, until one day you notice something incredible. You no longer panic when someone becomes distant. You no longer lose sleep trying to decode mixed signals, and you no longer rush to repair situations that you did not create, because you finally understand that someone who truly values your presence never forces you to constantly question your place in their life, And if she repeatedly places you in a position where you must compete for basic respect, your answer is not to compete harder. Your answer is to leave with your dignity completely intact. Because walking away from unhealthy treatment is not weakness. It is one of the strongest decisions you will ever make, and every step you take away from someone who only offers inconsistency becomes a step toward becoming the kind of man who naturally attracts healthier relationships, stronger friendships, greater opportunities, and a far deeper sense of inner confidence that no one can take away, because your standards are no longer built around keeping someone else happy. They are built around protecting the life you are working so hard to create. And once that becomes your mindset, you stop chasing acceptance and start living with quiet certainty, knowing that anyone who wants a place in your life must arrive with honesty, consistency, respect, and genuine effort, because nothing less deserves access to the man you are becoming. Number 5. Invest in yourself. Focus on your health, work, and purpose. The greatest mistake you can make after she gives you mixed signals is believing that the answer is to spend even more time thinking about her, because every hour you waste analyzing her messages, wondering who she is with, asking why she suddenly changes, or hoping tomorrow will somehow be different, is an hour stolen from the life you are supposed to be building. And while your attention remains fixed on someone who cannot even give you consistency, your own dreams quietly wait in the background. Your body receives less care, your finances remain where they are, your confidence weakens, and your future stands still, all because one woman occupies far more space in your mind than she has ever earned. And this is exactly why your life begins to transform the moment you make yourself your highest priority again, because your energy becomes an investment instead of an expense, and every day you choose to improve yourself. Instead of chasing her approval, you slowly become someone stronger than you were yesterday, not because you are trying to impress her, but because you finally understand that your future deserves more attention than her uncertainty. So instead of checking whether she has viewed your message, check whether you kept the promises you made to yourself. Instead of waiting for her to make plans with you, make plans that improve your own life. Instead of hoping she notices your value, become so committed to your own growth that her opinion no longer decides how you see yourself. Because confidence grows through action, not through attention. And every workout you complete, every book you finish, every skill you develop, every business idea you work on, every early morning you refuse to waste, and every difficult decision you make with discipline becomes another brick in the foundation of a life that nobody can take away from you. And this changes something deep inside you, because your identity slowly stops revolving around relationships and starts revolving around purpose. And purpose is what gives a man direction when emotions become loud. Because when you wake up every day with meaningful goals, you simply have less time to obsess over someone who repeatedly shows inconsistency, and that is not because your emotions disappear overnight. It is because your priorities finally become stronger than your distractions, and as your life grows, something else begins to happen that many men never expect. You stop placing women on a pedestal because you realize they are only one part of life, not the center of it. And when she notices that you are no longer constantly available, no longer waiting, no longer seeking opportunities to prove yourself, she often becomes curious because your attention is no longer easy to access. But whether she becomes curious or not is no longer the point, because your growth is never supposed to depend on whether she returns. Your growth exists because you finally understand that the man you become is worth infinitely more than the relationship you were chasing, and this mindset protects you from making desperate decisions because you stop believing that one woman determines your happiness. You stop acting as though losing her means losing your future, and you begin seeing life through a much wider perspective, understanding that opportunities continue to exist, genuine relationships continue to exist, and peace continues to exist for the man who refuses to stop growing. while so many men remain trapped because they build their identity around being chosen by a woman instead of choosing themselves every single day. And that decision quietly destroys their confidence because they become dependent on outside approval for their happiness. But when your purpose becomes stronger than your desire for validation, everything changes because your conversations become calmer, your standards become higher, your decisions become wiser, and your presence naturally becomes stronger without forcing anything. And this is the quiet confidence that cannot be copied, because it comes from countless days of discipline that nobody applauds, from keeping promises when nobody watches, from continuing to improve even when progress feels slow, and from refusing to allow disappointment to become your permanent identity, because every difficult experience now becomes useful instead of painful. Every lesson becomes another reason to grow instead of another excuse to quit. And even if she never changes, your life continues moving forward with strength and direction, because your future no longer depends on someone who cannot decide whether she truly wants to be part of it. And that freedom is priceless, because once you understand that your purpose deserves your full attention, you stop chasing people who offer uncertainty and start creating a life that naturally attracts respect, stability, and genuine appreciation, not because you demand it, but because the person you become refuses to settle for anything less. And that is how you quietly take control of your life again, not by changing her mind, but by changing your daily habits, your standards, your focus, and your direction, until your confidence no longer comes from who stays or who leaves, but from knowing that every single day you are becoming someone you are proud to be, regardless of who chooses to walk beside you. Number 6. Walk away with peace. Not everyone deserves access to your life. The day you truly accept this simple truth is the day your life begins moving in a completely different direction, because you finally stop believing that every woman who enters your life deserves endless chances, endless patience, and endless understanding while giving almost nothing in return. And instead you begin recognizing that access to your time, your attention, your loyalty, and your heart is something that should be earned through consistent actions, not clever words or occasional affection. Because when she repeatedly gives you confusion instead of clarity, distance instead of commitment, and uncertainty instead of honesty, she is making a choice, and your responsibility is not to convince her to choose differently. Your responsibility is to respect yourself enough to accept what she is showing you and quietly remove yourself without carrying bitterness into your future. Because too many men remain emotionally attached long after the relationship has already ended. Not because she continues loving them, but because they continue hoping that one day she will become the person they imagined instead of the person she consistently proves herself to be. And that hope slowly steals years from their lives while she continues living according to her own decisions without carrying the same emotional weight. So ask yourself an honest question. How much more of your life are you willing to spend waiting for someone who keeps showing you that your loyalty is convenient but not valuable enough for her to protect? Because every extra month spent chasing uncertainty is another month where your own future receives less attention, your own purpose grows weaker, and your own confidence becomes tied to someone else's unpredictable behavior. And there comes a point where continuing to hold on causes more damage than letting go ever could, because holding on to false hope quietly teaches you to ignore reality, while letting go teaches you to trust yourself again, and that trust becomes one of the greatest strengths you will ever develop, because once you learn that your peace matters more than temporary excitement, you stop making emotional decisions simply because someone briefly returns after disappearing. And if she suddenly reaches out after weeks or months of silence, you no longer mistake curiosity for commitment, because you understand that someone can miss your attention without truly valuing your presence. Someone can contact you because life became lonely without genuinely respecting who you are, and someone can return simply because the attention she expected elsewhere never arrived. And this is why discipline protects you better than emotion ever can. Because discipline asks simple questions that emotion often ignores. Has her behavior truly changed? Has she accepted responsibility without making excuses? Has she consistently demonstrated respect through actions instead of promises? And has she shown genuine effort without expecting you to carry the entire relationship again? Because if those answers are missing, then nothing meaningful has changed regardless of how emotional the conversation becomes. And walking away is no longer an act of anger. It becomes an act of wisdom, because you finally understand that protecting your future is more important than satisfying a temporary emotional desire. And many men fear walking away because they believe they will never find another woman. Yet that belief only exists because they spend so much time looking at one person that they forget how large life truly is, forgetting that every day brings new opportunities, new friendships, new experiences, and new relationships built on honesty instead of uncertainty. But those opportunities remain invisible while your attention stays locked on someone who repeatedly drains your energy. So the moment you release that attachment, your mind becomes lighter, your confidence slowly returns, and your world becomes bigger than one person's opinion of you. And this changes the way you carry yourself, because you stop entering conversations hoping to be accepted and start entering them. Knowing your value does not depend on the outcome. You stop fearing silence because silence no longer threatens your confidence. You stop chasing explanations because you no longer require closure from someone who refused to give you honesty, and instead you create your own closure by choosing yourself every single day. And that decision becomes one of the greatest gifts you ever give yourself, because your life is no longer controlled by who stays, who leaves, who replies, or who disappears. Your life is directed by your own principles, your own standards, and your own purpose. And if she eventually realizes what she lost, that discovery belongs to her, not to you. Because your mission is no longer proving your worth to someone who overlooked it. Your mission is continuing to build a life so meaningful that you never again abandon your own peace simply to keep another person comfortable. And when you reach that point, something remarkable happens. You stop seeing yourself as the man who was breadcrumbed and start seeing yourself as the man who refused to remain trapped by it, because the experience no longer defines your identity. It becomes the lesson that shaped your strength, your discipline, your standards, and your future. And from that day forward, you no longer fear someone walking away, because you understand that anyone willing to leave your life while treating your loyalty as something ordinary is creating space for people who genuinely recognize your value. And there is no greater freedom than waking up every morning knowing your happiness belongs to you, your peace belongs to you, your direction belongs to you, and nobody can take those things away unless you willingly place them into someone else's hands. The world becomes easier to control when men remain emotionally dependent instead of disciplined. But today, you choose a different path. So if you're ready to reclaim your self-respect, comment, "I choose discipline." Grab the Stoic Relationship Blueprint ebook for men linked in the comments, now also available as an audiobook, so you can absorb these timeless principles. Like this video and subscribe to help more men discover these truths and save themselves years of regret. And if you want to go even deeper, I'm also building the Stoic Relationship Blueprint course, launching this coming July, bringing together more than 2,000 years of timeless principles into a practical system you can finally apply to your own life and relationships.